All right, it is 9:30. I have 9:30. Good morning and welcome. It is 10:30. Somewhere. I'm not drinking, but I should. Good morning and welcome to the 38th CALLERLAB Convention. Good morning and welcome to the 38th CALLERLAB Convention. Today is Monday, the 18th of April. This is the Tech Marketing Session. I am Penn State. No, I am Stephen Cole. Your panelists today are Brian Jarvis and Kris Jensen. It says here I should know the subject to be discussed. Good luck. We didn't even rehearse this through email. Some of my best singing and duets are done that way, but we did not. And so here's how I'm looking at this as the moderator. I'm going to spend 5 to 10 minutes talking a little bit about what technology can do for you, and then I'm going to get out of the way, let them talk and present, do their thing, and then I will walk around, or I will say, please step to the microphone for your questions. And if you choose not to, I'll carry you there, or maybe I'll just point you there. Anyway. Tech marketing, what is it? What can it do? What can it do for you? We are, as human beings, social creatures. In some ways, we've become very asocial. We don't look at each other when we talk. We don't look at each other when we walk. And we run into each other kind of happenstance. Square dancing is one of those things where we can come back to and go back to some values of a time, maybe of a simpler age, when you can be next to your neighbor and enjoy their time and enjoy their company. One of the problems that we have in our 21st century society is that how do you meet new people? How do you engage people that you don't know or that you might not normally have met? I remember when I was out of college, when I went to college, if I wanted to go do something, I could either was in class or I went and if I was looking for a date, there were people 30 new people in a classroom, who knows who you're going to chat up. Here, today in the 21st century, we are so used to going home alone, or we get up in the morning and we get ourselves up, we brush our own teeth, we make our own breakfast, we drive ourselves to work, we do our job, we have our lunch by ourselves or maybe with one or two other people. We finish our job, we drive ourselves home, we may or may not pick up a child from school, we go make our dinners, we watch our televisions, and we go to our beds. How do we interact with people? How do we get new people in our doors to enjoy our activities? And how do we make new friends? Or how do we let people that might be our friends know what we're doing? Those are the questions that a 21st century asks, and we have 21st century answers. And that is technology. Yes, technology as a machine can be somewhat dehumanizing, and it can be somewhat unpersonal, not the word I want. It can be very disassociative. However, at the same time, it can be very engaging. And it can be very much finding out maybe what other people are doing without actually having to engage them with a long set of conversations. Yes, you lose some formal pleasantries, some niceties. You don't get the, hello, how are you, good to see you, how's Mabel, oh, she's great, how's John, John's fabulous, and go back and forth. Or in a 21st century society, how's Jim, John, Joe, and Jeff, or whomever. So, what do we do? What do we have? What are some of the technologies we have available to us? Well, the most famous is Facebook. The probably second most famous is things like Twitter. But not only that, we have things like email. We have the World Wide Web. Which is really just a front end to an internet communication. And we have a way to talk to people without necessarily engaging them with all of that, some of that pleasantry, or without you actually able to drill into what you want to know. Sometimes, and I hate to admit this on tape, but I do know that there are some times that I really don't want to go through all of the handshakes involved. Hey, how are you? How do you feel? How's work? I don't know. Really, when you want to know, I have one question. How's Grandma? Or how's Joe? Or how's Bill? Or how's Margie doing? Or what's going on? I want that answer. I don't need to, because I have like 200 people I want to deal with. Okay, maybe there's 3. But still, I want to know what's going on. Something like Facebook lets me find out what those friends of mine are doing and then what their friends are doing. kind of by extension, if you allow it. Yes, there are privacy things, and if you really want to talk about them, I'll let them do it, not me, because I don't want to take up that time. So something like Facebook lets me take a look at pictures, videos, comments. Some of them are just random humorous things. But sometimes they're, hey, I went to a square dance last night. And you hear, oh, what's that all about? What does this do? I went to a community dance. I went to a Mike Seastrom team dance. I went to something. And I had a good time. Oh, really? I want to know more about that. What about email? Email is a way to send out lots of flotsam and jetsam. Yes, I have a 20-month-old son. I'm trying to make sure that my first F words to him are things like flotsam. All right, they're awake, just making sure. So, there are ways with email that I can let people know what's going on and kind of keep track of them and let them know. And when I say email, emails are letting people know what's going on. It's a little brief sentence. If you send an email with 20 subjects in it, and it's 30 pages long and single-spaced, 8-point type, nobody's going to read it. But if you say, hey, I'm going to go out this night, why don't we all go together, period, done, move on. Send 10 emails with 10 subjects and you'll get 10 responses. Send one email with one email with 10 things in it, you're going to get deleted. So there's a whole etiquette thing that we have to talk about or we should be aware of. But there are ways to connect with people. That's what we do. I mean, some people say, well, what makes human beings different than apes and than other animals? And the truth is, at the end of the day, communication is probably the thing that differentiates us most. And we need to be better at communicating with each other, not only what we do and what we enjoy and what we don't enjoy. Things that, like Facebook, I think, and I like that one because it is a way, when my son was born, we had some health problems with him, and we let the world know. But I also use Facebook to let the world know what I'm doing with Square Dance Land. And I have a blog and that I hadn't updated in forever, and I realized, oh, I'm doing a tech marketing panel. I should update that thing. And I didn't realize how much stuff I had been doing. And so a paragraph at a time, and suddenly the world is now aware of, and people are writing me back, hey, it's good to know that you're back in calling. I've been back in calling. I never left. But people are like to know what's going on in my life. And they don't want to have to necessarily engage with me and engage with the rest of the world just to find out those nuggets. So that's kind of what that piece of tech marketing can do. Tech marketing can also involve advertising on other people's websites, your own. I have a website. It's down for maintenance now. When I put on there, on the top left-hand corner, top right-hand corner, someplace in there, I said, host a square dance party, no experience necessary, on the front page. I get calls about once a month to do a party. Sadly, the last one was in Atlanta, because people don't seem to realize or read the part where it says at the time it was either in Arizona or Washington State. But I have now started to say, I don't care where you're from, because I know enough people around the world, and I mean around the world because of square dancing, that I can find somebody to fill that need, to fill that space, and I forward it on. So if you want to have a square dance party, I want to make sure that you can have a square dance party. So that's advertising, because sometimes without self-promotion, there's no promotion at all. Now, there are other tools, and you probably have found one, and I hope that when this is over, that you have a chance to share those tools with somebody. I hope that, with us, I mean. Again, not nearly enough caffeine, but I'll get there. But if you've done something at the end of our session after Kris and Brian have spoken, share it with us, some of your experiences. Let us know what you've done, how you've connected with your fellow man, woman, child, or the child within you, or the woman within you, as the case may be. Okay, a man can drink. No laughter? None? Yeah, I'm also the MC for dinner tonight. I'm a little worried. That was funny. All right. Anyway, I have said what I wanted to say today, and I am now going to turn it over. I think Kris is closest, so I'm going to let her talk, let her speak. It looks like she's brought some technology with her. That's very exciting, and I'm going to let them do their thing, and hopefully they'll be much more engaging than I was. So how about a hand for Kris Jensen, please?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So Brian actually did all the work on this great handout that we've passed out, and we're dividing up the subjects a little bit. I'm going to be looking at more of the sort of using technology for more traditional one-to-many outreaching to all of the mouse potatoes who are surfing the web to get them to communicate with them. So when I started thinking about this topic, I was thinking about it in terms of using technology both for communication, that is communicating to strengthen relationships, as Stephen was talking about, between you and your dancers, between the dancers altogether, to keep the club, if you're looking at retention in your clubs, a good way of doing that is to promote communication with the members of the club, and also using technology a little bit to help callers communicate among themselves. I think we've seen more of that in the past few years, of callers in between CALLERLAB meetings and in between their local meetings having some kind of communication with themselves. And then you can also look at tech marketing as a marketing tool, using technology to market yourself to your dancers. So again, building those relationships with the dancers and marketing yourself as a caller so that you get booked. Using technology to market square dancing to non-dancers. And as we all know, that's a big part of what both we need to do and our clubs need to do. And using technology to market yourself as a caller to non-dancers to do those one-night parties and get bookings for those things. So I'm going to talk about using sort of one-to-many marketing techniques, and that would be setting up a website, using a blog, and mostly that, using email lists, possibly sending out a newsletter to a mailing list of people, those kinds of things that you can do to market yourself and your club and square dancing to the internet world. So first off, setting up a website. I think that every caller, every club, every organization that's involved in square dancing needs to have a personal place on the web. How you set that up, there are a lot of options for doing that. But step one, figure out what you want that site to do. If it's a club site, you want the first part of it to talk about your club and to give the important information. And probably mostly for non-dancers you want, or people who are interested, they're interested in square dancing and learning to square dance. So you want to figure out how to do that, how to present your club, and let people know when lessons are and when they can join and how much fun square dancing is and how much fun your club is, and make that all readily accessible. If you're marketing yourself, then that's a different thing. You want to sell yourself, talk about what you do and what kinds of calling you do and how much fun they could have at a one-night stand if you called it, and things like that. But step one, I think everybody needs a domain name. Every club should have a domain name. You should have a domain name. And your organization should have a domain name. So, and that's gotten a lot easier. When my company back in the early 80s decided to get in on doing a website, getting a domain name was non-trivial. It was sort of complicated to even figure out how to go about doing that. Now you see ads for GoDaddy on TV, and it's pretty easy to get yourself a domain name. It's less easy to find one that hasn't been used, but square dance organizations, their names aren't all that common, so you could probably get, I got wildbunch.org for our group, and that's not that hard. So you go to a domain name registrar. You can look up and see what names are taken, pick out some good names. and see if you can get that as a domain name. It costs $15 or less a year in general to have a domain name. So you can think of that as your rental fee for your identity on the web. I own ChrisJensen.com. I don't know whether you guys have a domain name.
I actually have a couple. Some of them are parked. And
Okay.
iSquareDance.com is what I use.
So Stephen uses iSquareDance.com. I got a few others. I've got some Dance New Mexico and picked out a few that I liked to use. So it's not that expensive, and it's a good thing to do, and it's not hard to do. You'll see ads for GoDaddy. I don't use GoDaddy, but that's certainly a place to get started. Look up domain name registrar on the web, and you'll get lots of choices. So you get your own domain name. Then you need a place to put the stuff that is going to go on your web page. And for that, you need a web host provider. And there are a lot of those. A lot of you will have free web space through your internet service provider, your ISP. So you can check there. Often they'll give you like 5 or 10 megabytes for free. You can also find places on the web that will give you free web space, but usually they put advertising on them. I mean, there's no real free ride. So I personally don't like websites that have other advertising on it. I want it to be focused on my information or the information for the clubs. But you can certainly find free websites. I would suggest for just starting out that you use your own, whatever free web space you have through your ISP, and that then you, at your domain name registrar, they usually have an option where you can take that name and point it to web space that you own. So, for example, if you have www.comcast.net/some number / your name or something like that as where your web space is provided by your ISP, you can then go to your domain name registrar and point www.chrisjensen.com to that web space. So that's a way to get started relatively easily to have your own domain name plus some web space. Otherwise, you look up web hosts on the internet, and you can find hundreds of them. And they provide different services. You may need to go to a web host if you want a more complicated website that involves, say, databases or a storefront or things like that. So if you need web space from a web host provider, that can cost anywhere from $10 to $15 a year up through $10 and up dollars per month. So again, it's based on what you need, how much storage you need, and such like that. I pay currently $11.95 for unlimited storage and unlimited bandwidth. And anyway, through a web host provider. And you can pay, some people would pay $50 or $60, but you don't need that. You know, for a static web page, you don't need those kinds of services. So use your free web space. All right, the next thing you need to do is set up the web space, or set up the website. So what are you going to put up there that people will access through the internet? An easy way to get started is to use some of the free blog services out there. For example, you could go to www.wordpress.com and easily sign up for a blog, which stands for weblog. In the early days, weblogs were places where people would post basically links and their comments on the links, and would do a daily or several times a day post that people would come to and see what these people were doing. And weblogs can still be used like that, but WordPress software can also be used to set up a static web page. And you can get a free space on WordPress.com. Last year, Stephen presented a handout on how to initially set that up, and you can probably still find that on the CALLERLAB website. So you could look at that and see how to set up a WordPress blog. And then, of course, you can go back to your domain name registrar and point your domain name to your WordPress blog, so that when somebody types in www.yourclubname.org, they will be sent to this blog, which is easy to design, a fairly attractive looking site, and easy to put the information that you need, and also easy to change, because the thing about a blog software is that it's designed for people to update it daily, so that it's easy to change what's on the website. And one of the things that's really important about a website, which I have to plead guilty of not doing, but is to keep it updated. So you want the information on that front page to be up to date. If you have a dance coming up next Saturday, you want that information to be there. So you want to make it easy to keep your website current. So using blogging software is a good way to do that. Another way to set up a website is to find some software that will let you design the website graphically on your computer, and then will generate the HTML to put up on the site. HTML is the language that's used to write web pages. You don't have to know HTML to put up a good site. If you want to learn HTML, it is not a hard language to learn, and you can find a lot of tutorials on doing that. On the handout, you'll see that we very strongly stated a couple of design principles about doing websites, and they include not having background music, and not having flashing graphics, and not having blinking letters, and things like that. If you do that, people will look at your website and think that's very 80s. So, I personally have a bias for very simple websites that have the information that you need without a lot of complicated design elements and graphics. I want to see what I want to know on the website right away. So you can use software to design a website. The important thing, though, is to have something up there and keep it current. You want to do that for yourself, and if you're involved in a club, you may want to help your club do that. Okay, questions? Any questions about doing website design? Yes, use the microphone, please.
My husband does Meg Ferguson from Saratoga, California. My husband does the website for our club, and he keeps the website very simple in case people have older computers that can't do all the graphics and stuff like that. That was just a comment. Yeah, you'll see websites that use Flash. I'm hoping that people will move away from using Flash because my device doesn't read Flash. I would say keep it simple. The other point is you might want to consider, particularly as we go along, is a lot of people are using devices like this, smartphones and such. And if you use a WordPress blog, they've actually just this past few months, have put in an option so that you may sort of automatically set a setting where your blog will also be published in a format that smartphones can easily use. So that's an advantage of using some software that's provided by WordPress, is that without any more work on your part, you will get something that's easily accessible from a smartphone. And as more and more people use smartphones, that becomes more and more important, especially for the kinds of social things that we're talking about now. Stephen, did you have a question? So, anyway, other comments about software or websites?
One thing I have found is people are often afraid to try this because they don't understand web technology. Find the 12-year-old. I'm serious. You have teenagers in your clubs. Ask them. They will know how to do this. Ask them to help. Get them involved.
That was Alan Hurst from the Bay Area.
Andy Shore from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I just want to put in a plug for Google Sites, which is another really easy way to set up a website, have your domain pointed to it. It's very easy to integrate Google Calendars and Maps and YouTubes and things, have multiple people be able to edit the site and have an edit history of that, an audit trail of that, and so on. I've used it to set up a couple of sites for square dancing and contra dancing, and it's a no-brainer.
Thank you, Andy.
Mike Sikorsky, Mesa, Arizona. I just want to share with everybody that most recently I did go to GoDaddy, and I did get the name ArizonaCaller.com, and then I went to Gmail and got a free email. So that's also my email name. You can brand it that way. And they do limit your pages, and I like the F word, free. So I like the cheapest also. And so the cheapest for GoDaddy was, I think, 5 pages. And you get your one name, and then you can have 4 that will appear on the same page. You go, and you have a separate URL that you can refer for 5 events. But if you happen to have more than that, I found that I use WordPress, and that's free. And so if you go there and establish the blog, you then go to establish a blog, and there's a button, and all those little buttons there, if you hold your cursor over for 2 or 3 seconds, the description will come up, and one is add media. And then I upload a flyer that way, and you can type in the description, leave the cursor right behind the description, and you'll upload the flyer, have it create its own, you'll have a choice to create its own URL. And then when you load it and you save it, then you can view the page, and you click on that link you just created, and that gives you the URL for that specific flyer. You then go back to your GoDaddy webpage and add that URL into your webpage, and then when they click, from your webpage, it'll immediately go to that particular flyer, and that is an unlimited application at this point.
Right. So the one disadvantage of, I think it's great to put flyers up there, but you also want to have some HTML or some text, because if you want to go to Google and Google something like the name of the event, you want some text there that Google has indexed so that it will show up in the search. So be sure that you label things, have a good name for that document, and possibly some HTML elsewhere on the blog, on the front page of your blog, that talks about that flyer. Okay, Roy.
Roy Gotta from New Jersey. Just another little-known site that was actually designed for school teachers called eboard.com. That's eboard.com. It was designed for teachers to post their homework assignments, and our website is on that. Anybody can use it. It costs me $39 a year. I don't know HTML, and your site basically looks like a file cabinet. You have file tabs, and we have a tab for round dance clubs, square dance clubs, links to other associations, our resume, our schedule, and you can post attachments with schedules and flyers. And I kind of call it like a website for dummies, but you don't need to know any of the language, and it's cheap.
All right. Don't let any of this stuff intimidate you. As Alan said, you can look for a 12-year-old, or you can learn to do it yourself. It's not that hard to do. There you go. Let the 12-year-old teach you. All right. So you've got your website up, and you are updating it frequently so that if somebody Googles your name or your club's name or whatever you're promoting via this website, they will find that. Now, there are some issues involved there. People will, once you set up a website, you're going to start getting mail from so-called search engine optimizers who will offer to make your page go way up in the rankings based on all of their secret techniques to let people know about your page. I don't think you need to worry about that. I think the important thing is to have good descriptive text. In an HTML document, there's a place to put meta tags.
These are tags that describe the page, and you want to have descriptive words there. Yes. Correct. A meta tag does not show on the web page. You also want to have descriptive information that shows on the web page, which is a good reason for using text rather than graphics on your web page, because you want that information to be there. The meta tags help, though. The search engines do use the meta tags to index your page. They also use the page title. They also, it's my understanding that pages that are changed frequently will often rank higher in the search engine results than pages that are totally static. So another reason for using something like WordPress or some other blogging software is if you keep your page updated and change it relatively often to show the most recent things that are going on with you or your club, that will then help your page in the search engine results. Okay, yes. Troy.
Troy Johnson from Seattle, Washington. Another thing that helps is make sure that your title tags for each page are descriptive. The Google spiders look for that as well. And just kind of general good web page communication is use short declarative sentences. Don't ramble. And make sure that each sentence you're describing exactly what you're talking about, because the more descriptive and short you are, the better that text will be cached into the various search engines. So.
Okay, so you've got your web page, you've got and you've got it out there so people will find it. What other methods can we use to communicate sort of one-to-many to our dancers and to other people? One club in our area has been very successful with putting out a newsletter once a month. Now, in the old days, of course, we would print out our newsletters and have them distributed at the club, but they do it via email, and they do a very nice graphically designed newsletter, and it goes out to all the members. So they have the email addresses of all their members, and they send out this newsletter, and people really like it. So that's something to think about. There are some issues involved in mailing to large numbers of email addresses. If it's small, under 25 or 50 email addresses, it's usually not a problem just doing that through your own email provider. If it gets more than that, you may need to look into newsletter services that will mail out to mailing lists of hundreds of members, and you can find those online. You can also find software that you can install on your website that will do those kinds of things. So that's something to look into. But for most of us who have small clubs, you can just do it via your own email. You can also set up, and our club has this, an email list where everybody who's in the club is on the email list, and anybody can send email via that email list that goes to all the club members. So that's really useful for last-minute communication. The dance is canceled tonight, and you can send that out, or we're having a party Saturday night, or let's all go raid a banner the next Tuesday. It's just a way of facilitating communication among all the club members. So you can do those. Google has email lists. Yahoo lists are available. You can set that up via one of those services, or if you know somebody who's very technically inclined, they can set up an email server through your web host and do that. The SD callers list. How many of you are on SD callers? Okay. If you're not, you might want to be on that. That's a mailing list that just goes to callers. And that is run by Rich Reel, who runs several other mailing lists and is good about setting things up for big organizations. So SD callers, traditional SD, and a few others are on that, run through there. So the advantage of that is that you don't have the ads that Google puts on or Yahoo puts on the email. But, free through Google. It's great.
questions about mailing lists or email lists or sending out a newsletter or any other ideas of one-to-many, you, the caller, setting up your setup to get the word out about events and yourself?
Danny Payne, Oklahoma City. What about Facebook groups?
We're going to that. That's my esteemed colleague Brian Jarvis, who's going to talk about, thank you for that segue, Facebook and Twitter and all of the social media things. Here's Brian.
I didn't pay him for that segue. Really, I didn't. Okay. How many people here are already using Facebook? Okay, so almost everybody knows what it is. Why does it work?
It's easy.
Yeah, free is my second favorite word in the entire English language. The first one is chocolate, okay, for the record. Why does it work? You already know. Where do we get most of our new dancers? They're friends of existing dancers. Why does Facebook work then? How do you get so many friends? Well, you've got friends that are already there, relatives, family, people you went to school with, people you dance with, other callers that you work with, working colleagues. They have friends. They are going to see each other. They are going to friend each other. Facebook's a good example. It's the single largest one. Statistics from a couple months ago, they have 500 million users, and more than half of those log in daily. That's a huge network. Friends looking at friends, and I've met extra people I didn't know existed because they were recommended through the Facebook system based on our interest. Fabulous. It's one great, huge referral network. This is many to many. Individuals can send messages to their network of friends who may choose to echo it onto other friends in their network or respond back. There's not a single point of publication anymore. This is a fabulous thing. It's extremely powerful. Again, why does it work? Because we value our friends. We value our friends' opinions. When I think about buying, say, a car, for example, I could listen to the advertising on the television. I could see the print publications in magazines. And that may put a name in my head of a particular brand. But that will not make me buy a car. I will talk to my friends. I will ask what they are driving, what they like, what they are using. And I value their opinion. They will provide me much stronger guidance than Consumer Reports would. Similarly, they are going to give me the unvarnished truth because their social status is dependent on the veracity and authenticity of their statement. If they mislead me, they're going to hear about it. So that's why social networking is powerful. That's why it works. This you already know. We've done this for years. Personal conversations, small groups of people, people having coffee together, generations past. Now with tech marketing, we're moving up the speed and the scale dramatically. How many people here actually talk about square dancing on their Facebook page? A fraction of the people. Here, most of the people had put up their hands saying they've got a Facebook page. Only a fraction actually talk about square dancing on it. Why is that? These people are going to be our single easiest market. Just say you're going square dancing tonight. Or I had a great time square dancing with caller so-and-so. Or I had a fabulous time at this CALLERLAB convention in Las Vegas. It's useful information. It's not only of interest to other square dancers, but it's also of interest to people who do not square dance currently. They may not have known that you were involved in square dancing. They may not even know that square dancing exists. They will know. And then when it comes time to do your recruitment drives, they're already halfway familiar. They know who is in square dancing. They know that you value square dancing a lot because you go square dancing a lot. You know that you're authority in dancing and the social networks that come with it because you're a leader in the environment. There is value in this. Use it. It's free. My second favorite word. I should caution, the media that you use is going to depend on the demographic you're targeting. What does that mean? Well, if Old media marketing, this is, say, posters put up on the bulletin board at your grocery store. If that works for you and as a useful recruitment tool, excellent. But people don't always look at those bulletin boards anymore. But a lot of people have had email for a long time. I've been using email for 30 years now. Who knew it was available that long? I just did the numbers. It's like, oh, my God. I've hit the 30-year mark now. Okay, fabulous. I've got email. My grandmother has email. Everybody in my family has email. Email will reach them. Wonderful. But I've noticed my nieces and nephews do not use email. In fact, we've got a whole new generation of college graduates that will use email if they have to submit assignments to their professors, but otherwise will never compose or read email, ever. It is not their tool. It's a generational thing. They use text messaging, mobile devices, Facebook, Twitter, other tools like that. As you get younger and younger, they will move down the scale from Facebook down to, say, Twitter usage. Twitter will not reach my grandmother. Bless her heart, she turned 84 this past Friday. She's very, very technologically savvy. She was into object-oriented programming before I knew what it was. She's a geek. But she will not use Twitter. If you use Twitter to contact her, to answer her target marketing, you will not reach her. My parents are in their mid-60s. They will reach, you can reach my mom through email. My dad, I don't think he actually understands that a telephone is an outgoing communications device. I've never seen him dial one, ever. You will not reach him that way. My parents know how to use telephones, or at least Mom does, but Mom does not own a smartphone. So that will not reach her. She is familiar with Facebook. She knows it, kind of. My siblings all have smartphones. I can reach them with that. And, of course, anybody younger, of course they have a smartphone, but they don't use it as a telephone. They use it to send text messages back and forth. Voice, oh, God, that's so passé for them. So depending on what market you're going for, target appropriately. Use the right tool. How many people here? Oh, sorry, question in the back.
I've not done it, but I'm Danny Payne again. Danny Payne from Oklahoma City. But my daughter does, and she Twitters and directs those messages to post to Facebook. And so, I mean, she can use that as a tool, even though she wouldn't reach people directly by Twitter, to reach other people on Facebook.
These networks can interconnect. When I got here this morning, and as people were getting seated, I got on my smartphone. I've got a BlackBerry Storm. It's an old model. I'll be upgrading next month. And I posted to Twitter saying that I'm in Las Vegas. I'm at the CALLERLAB convention. I'm here in this panel on tech marketing. My Twitter account is automatically cross-posting to my Facebook account. So is automatically updated. Now, why would anybody care? Well, I've got 140-odd followers on Twitter. I've got 780 followers on Facebook. Not all of those followers are individuals. Some of them are other lists. The last time I was calling for a community dance, I put a note out on Twitter saying that I was going to be calling. It went out to my 100 and some odd followers at that point. And then several of them retweeted to their lists. So suddenly that word of that spread automatically to 4,000 additional people. No cost. Now, not all of them would have come to the dance. Not all of them would be interested. But all of them are now aware, at least, that square dancing exists and that people go and that there's an interest. Roy.
Roy Gotta from New Jersey again. Practical question. You mentioned, pick your appropriate media. If you were going to target the empty nesters, say the 45 to 60-year-olds, what would be your recommendation as the best technical marketing tools?
I would probably stick with Facebook. I would keep the web page constantly updated. The issues I find with a lot of old media is that we are publishing. We want to push data from a central point out to the masses. And that's a useful thing. Depending on what you're using, you hope then that people are receptive at that moment. You hope that when a flyer lands on their desk or a business card is stuffed into their hand, you hope that they are receptive at that moment. If you've got the web page active and you're using your usual social networks, talking to people, yeah, that's actually a useful method. Talk to people. Use email. Contact your friends and find out what networks they're on, which email lists, their church list, their community, neighborhood, or civic association mailing lists. If you have a regional professional list, say technical writers in the greater Washington, D.C. area, where I happen to live, and I could either sponsor a mailing as part of my marketing campaign, or with permission, ask that, by the way, as I am a member of this, I want to point out that I am going to this Square Dance event, and going through professional networks that way. LinkedIn would be the next choice of network or application. I do not use that for square dancing per se because I am a full-time Unix and network engineer. I use LinkedIn for my professional full-time job, and I use my Facebook and Twitter accounts for my square dancing world. But that might be another method of getting through to them. We always say that our dancers are our best recruiters. Find out what access they have. Survey them. Find out what their professional associations are, their local civic associations, their community groups, and work through those. Now, most of us already have Facebook pages. Do you have a fan page or is it a personal page? Fan pages? 1, 2, 3, yeah. If you haven't set one up yet, I would recommend as a Square Dance caller or marketer to set up as a fan page. Why? Because people can like it, and therefore when they click on something to like a particular page, it shows up in their network updates. So their friends will see they like such and such. The interests will cross-post as well, and you can set up additional administrators so that if you go on vacation, sick leave, whatever, you can share the administration with your partner, your spouse, or trusted others who will help with maintenance of it. Please, please, please keep it current, and when people ask questions and communications on those systems, respond. Even if it's just to say that I can't answer that question right now, but I will get back to you as soon as I can. That would be good enough. People are used to rapid responses from rapidly evolving technology. So please keep on top of that. As Kris had said earlier, keep your events listing current. I believe we have in our flyer, upcoming dances from 2007 just doesn't cut it anymore. It has to be current. And if you use the right tools, you can automate it. Anybody here using Twitter? A couple of us? Cool. I love an extra service called Twitter. Twitter. Why? Because every upcoming event that I have in my calendar, I can program into Twitter, and it will issue the Twitter update automatically on my behalf at the appointed time, as many times as I indicate. So if I have a community dance coming up, I've just been tapped by a particular club in Pennsylvania for a dance coming up in the middle of July. Great. I'm going to announce that weekly on my Twitter account. I just enter all the key information, calling dance for such and such a club. Here's a link to the map site. It's on this date at this time, so many dollars at the door. I can do that weekly, the time leading up, and daily for the 3 days just prior to that particular dance. So it gets automatically flushed out to my Twitter account, automatically then fed back into my Facebook account. Everybody gets to see. And you can always ask people to retweet and repost if you've got something that you want to share. I've got such and such a dance coming up. Or I know that, John Marshall has a dance coming up on such and such a weekend in York, Pennsylvania. Wouldn't it be great to have an extra crowd there? Post that, and then ask all of your friends to retweet that or repost it on theirs to spread the word, or repost the link back to it. Share. Ask people to do it. They're happy to help, typically. That's the core of what I wanted to say, and most of the other details are in the handouts. We still have more copies for those that came in late and didn't get a copy. Are there any questions?
Dennis Clark from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm wondering if anyone has utilized in Facebook the click advertisements in their area and how successful or unsuccessful that is. I like free too, but this one unfortunately isn't, and I just have hesitated at using that.
I have not used the Facebook ads yet. I know you've experimented with Google AdWords. I have not. You have not? Oh, Nasser did. Sorry.
Google AdWords, Nasser Shukair did some work in Texas, I believe, with using Google AdWords to publicize square dancing. He found that square dancing as an ad word got very few hits, but that fun exercise got a lot of hits. So you need to be careful about what words you're using and what you want to get from that. Of course, you want hits that are useful for you because you're paying per hit. On Facebook advertising, we're looking into that for a folk festival that I'm involved in, and we found that in the Albuquerque area, if we took people who were already friends or fans of the folk festival on our Facebook page, and then we asked for not those people, but their friends. So we had, like maybe 300 people who were friends of the Albuquerque Folk Festival, but then we wanted their friends who were not already friends of the Folk Festival. It went up to about 14,000 people in Albuquerque, and we are going to use, when we get closer to the festival, we are going to use Facebook advertising, the side advertising for that, to reach those 14,000 people who have friends who are already interested in the folk festival.
The other thing that I would like to add to that, and I haven't tested it myself, but when I was living in Arizona, I was involved with the club, the Desert Valley Squares. Their president said, "We're going to put out this advertising. Please don't click on it yourself. You'll get it your own copy," because there is a kind of a fee to click. It's not a lot, a couple cents, but it can add up if it goes too far. I think there's a couple of different ways to make the advertisement show up. This one was a paid advertisement that it was based on per click. I think there's another one that you can pay a flat fee to advertise. Pay-per-view is a pay per click to go to. So just make sure that you read the fine print. I'm still waiting to hear the actual response rate. I have to talk to Gordon sometime this week, so I will find out and kind of maybe put it on SD callers or something like that. Next question.
Not a question, just a comment. Gordon White from Arkansas. For those of you that make your flyers, please include your state. We see many flyers that say Springfield, First Baptist Church, Main Street, Springfield. I think there's a Springfield in every state. The second thing in regard to the flyers, put down the day of the week. August 22nd sounds good, but it's much more informative if you say Thursday, July 22nd. Just comments. Also the year, thank you, yes.
I'm Gary Welch from Halifax. That's in a foreign country.
That's my foreign country.
Cool. I feel like a bit of a dinosaur. I come from an era where I had to learn how to do Fortran programming. Fortran? Yeah, right. And I recently, 5 years ago, the Nova Scotia provincial website, Square and Round Dance website, was dropped into my lap, and so I had to pick up a little bit of HTML to keep that going. So that's where I'm at. But for reasons which I won't take time to explain right now, Dottie, my wife, who's a caller, and I find that we would like to expand into the younger generation to make them aware of what we're doing. We have recently acquired a hand-me-down monthly Contra public dance. And we don't have easy access to 18-year-olds. So the intimate, ingrained biological knowledge of how Facebook and Twitter work aren't available to us. So for people who have some tech savvy, but really don't know much about the nuts and bolts of getting a Facebook account going, what would you recommend? We can read, so that's not a problem. But where do we find this stuff?
I wish I would have brought my handouts from last year, printed them some out here. They're online. If you go to the CALLERLAB website, they're still available. They're a little dated because the Facebook folks have updated their interface, and added and changed some of the privacy, but most of the stuff is still there, and it's still relevant. I will double check probably for next year. I will not be attending because it's hard to get my spring break to line up with the convention, but I'll make sure that maybe some of the handouts I've done stay current. If nothing else, go on my website. The other thing I would say, as far as reaching out to an 18-year-old audience, your best bet is to grab a hold of an 18-year-old. Don't do it literally because you can get in a lot of trouble. But certainly, if you're a church-going person, or if you're a social organization, whether like the Lions Club, Masons, something like that, there's got to be somebody that you could borrow their 18-year-old. And if it's somebody that has some of this strength, if they don't know, they'll find somebody and say, "Listen, I just want some help." You'd be surprised how many of our young people today, I'm a teacher full-time, want to help. I sometimes have my students who have just learned something in class want to say, "Oh, this is how I figured it out," and they will help you. Just let them. And know that there's going to be a language barrier. It's English, but it's not.
Andy Shore again. I just want to emphasize the synergistic effect of the web and linking. If you have your own website and you don't link to the CALLERLAB website, you should. If your club has a website and doesn't link to your website, they should, and vice versa. If you have a Facebook page and you don't, I like CALLERLAB, you should. All of these things will improve each other's rankings in search results. They will help other people find you, find your club, find our activity, and it's free. If you don't have an up-to-date caller profile on Vic Cedars caller cure database, you should. It should have your current address, your current phone number, your current email address, a link to your website, and maybe a list of your clubs.
And this might be a good opportunity to put in a plug for you2candance.com. I think it's .com? Yep.
Yes.
Link to that.
Yes, a link to you2candance.com, which I'm sure we'll hear more about this convention, maybe? Maybe not. All right, which the Arts Foundation helped put together along with all of its members and so on. They really do build on each other. All of these links and likes have a synergistic effect. It's free, and it really does increase your visibility and the visibility of our activity.
Right, and I just want to emphasize using all of the tools that are out there, all of the places that are out there where you can put your links. Andy mentioned Vic Cedars' website. As a caller, you should keep that updated, but your club should also keep that updated. Vic's site is really interesting in that it's database-driven, so things show up very nicely there from information that you can put into his database. So you, as a caller, can have your caller information in his database. It'll automatically show up as a really nice-looking web page. Plus, if you enter your club in there, then that club will automatically link to your profile, your caller profile. When your profile comes up, it automatically links to that club's profile. And people searching there can find your club and you. If you put in your weekend events in there, that will automatically link to your profile and your club's profile and to Google Maps, I think. And so everything is put in there via a database, but you can keep that updated. And I would really suggest doing that. I would also suggest looking for other places on the web that publicize square dance events. And there are a couple of other websites that list all of try to list all of the festivals, but they're only as good as the information that they get from you. So keeping that updated. Dosado.com also needs to be kept updated. So I think we can go right to lunch.
Yeah. Okay. Bill Trelevin from Milestone, Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm also one of the dinosaur group. I want to know, as a caller, if I put all this information, my telephone number, my address, and all that sort of thing out there, and then tell them I'm going to go to Vegas for a couple of weeks, how general is this publication going to go out to everybody in the world, or is it just to square dancers who know I have nothing to steal at home, but there might be people who misunderstand the situation?
If you're worried about security, then don't say that you're going or that you are at. Say that you're just back from, indicating that you did go. You went to upgrade. It communicates to your square dancing crowd, your square dancers, that you are upgrading your skills. You are pursuing new interests in square dancing. You're sharing your knowledge. It increases your market value. And by putting in the past tense, you're already home again. That covers that basis.
One other thing I want to say. The other thing is that nothing in the world is permanent, yet everything is. When you put something online, I can find it. Because I have a friend who said, there is nothing about me that you're going to find. I found out her husband's name, her kids' names, when her mom passed away, everything else about that. They say in the United States alone, there is 50 gigabytes per person of data that is flying out there from your checking account number to the Social Security Administration. There is information out there, and some of it's being tracked by you, some of it's being tracked about you. If you are worried that maybe your address and other information is going to be used by people that are bad, don't post it. Somebody can find it somewhere else. Or get a post office box. I did that for a while, but I got tired of going to the post office. I'm like, okay, if they're going to rob me, bring it. Because then at least I have a company. It's like, hello. But some people will make a business, or they'll get a free Google phone number, and then they'll forward their phone to that so that they can shut it off. There are alternatives. Investigate them. If your privacy is important to you, then protect it as best you can, but you cannot be 100%.
And this is also a generational thing. Younger people are just not caring about their privacy anymore. It's all out there. So.
It is all out there, and be prepared to get too much information about people, and just learn that you can yell. You can say, why would you share these things? Or would you please just shut up? I hate that word. I hate those two words, but sometimes you're like, oh. That's what the delete key is for. And it's sometimes very fun. Delete, delete, bye-bye, bye-bye. So go ahead and do that.
Roy Gott again. One of Brian's comments and then Bo's question reminded me that this is all well and good, but don't forget to combine it with some of our older quote technologies. In other words, Bo just asked me, how do you spell that You Two Can Dance website? I pointed to my shirt. Okay, for $8, I had it embroidered on this shirt. We don't wear these at Square Dance events. We wear them in public so people can ask us about it. And I see Mike Hogan is behind me. He will probably mention tomorrow's session. I don't know when it is. He'll tell you, which will expand on some of this and some other things. I know especially the Google ads by one of the presenters. So just keep in mind.
Marketing is 24/7. Marketing is all the time, everywhere. But it isn't carpet bombing. It's surgical precision. You want to have the right keywords. You want to be available at all times. So when people want to go looking, they can find you. Instead of just simply pushing something in front of them and hope that they're receptive at that moment. So, yeah, be ready and keep everything current and up to date. And never forget the old media. There's always great power in the little gimmicks. Baseball hats that have something catchy on it about square dancing, or embroidery on shirts, things like that. Something that will catch the eye, something out of the ordinary. Mimeographs. Okay.
Hi, I'm Bo Byerly from North Carolina. I got one of these things 2 months ago, and I was very surprised how little information there was in the book that came with it.
Welcome
it tells you
to
how
the
to use
collective.
it. I've spent 2 months, and I'm just now getting to the point where I can receive and send emails on there. So my question is mostly about mechanics. Okay, now that I've kind of plugged into things, when it comes to things like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, can I still do that from my home computer?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
in all cases.
And on this thing here, now when I got it, I got kind of the standard plan. Do I also have to have that texting thing too, or when I do the Facebook, is that part of my data plan? And, they don't tell you this stuff.
For the most part, if you have a separate application, say a Twitter application or a Facebook application for your smartphone, that's going to be covered under your data plan. Now, if you've signed up to Twitter, if you use Twitter, you can receive your Twitter messages from your people you are following two different ways. One is through the application or through your desktop, but you can also receive it as text messages, and that will count towards your text message quota, depending on your particular data plan and your carrier.
Okay.
But texting is different.
Texting is different from data, which is different, again, from voice.
So as long as I'm, quote, emailing, I'm part of the data plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm Mike Hogan from Omaha, Nebraska. And I have a couple of comments, and I do have a question at the end of it, so bear with me. First of all, Bo, for the tape, Bo is holding up a smartphone, which he just got. And I can tell you, we are, by the way, thank you, Roy, for reminding me, we do have a session called Target Marketing, and I believe it's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. If somebody wants to check that for me. It's not on my agenda for today, so I'm not worrying about it yet. At any rate, when I do dances, a lot of times I have my cell phone there. If you have a smartphone, you'll find that the world, you cannot get away from the world. I'm already trying to ignore about 30 text messages or emails from the office today. And what I do from the stage is I'll stand up at a dance and I'll say, how many of you have one of these? And of course, almost every dancer on the floor has a cell phone of some form, whether it's a new smartphone or, mine's kind of a basic smartphone because it's a BlackBerry instead of having all of the video and all of the things. And I can't figure out half the things that it does probably. But then when I ask the dancers, how many of you have one of these? About every one of them has a cell phone. And then I say, well, how many of you text message? Which is probably, after email, is the next oldest version of our communicating. And maybe 10% of our current dance floor actually text messages. So then I say, so it would probably be silly for me to ask you to friend me on Facebook, because most of our current dancer population looks at that and goes, what's that? So it's unfortunate that we don't really have a lot more people in the room today than what I think could benefit from this. When we talk about target marketing, one of the issues that we really have got to figure out is how do we take square dancing to the next generation? Even if it's my generation, for the tape I'm 48, and I'm just a kid, and most dances I'm still the youngest person at the dance. But if we want to grow square dancing again, we're going to have to at least reach out to that empty nester baby boomer that's 45 to 55 years old, or even younger than that, to youth, and we may have to skip a generation. Well, you can utilize this type of marketing to reach younger generations, and it will automatically happen, because the younger generations are the generations that are using the technology. So if you're wondering about how do I reach younger people, use this technology. It is automatically going to reach younger people for you. Now, you have a certain number of friends that are your Facebook friends, and if you're 80 years old and you're using Facebook, I'm going to guess that most of your Facebook friends are 80 years old, but they have family. They have children and they have grandchildren, and you'll reach those people as well. You made a comment about if you want to reach 18-year-olds, borrow someone's 18-year-old. That makes a lot of sense. In the marketing world, people want to participate in things that they feel like they see themselves participating in, like they're welcome there. So if you have an 80-year-old that's sending tweets about going to a square dance and expect an 18-year-old to get that message and feel good about it, it's not going to happen. That's why you borrow the 18-year-old.
I would also add, if for your regular print media, I have the same gripe. if you're going to be sending brochures and print materials, hoping to get people in the 25 or younger crowd, and your photos are all of retired senior citizens, you have a marketing problem.
We talk about doing a lot of, getting people to experience, just to learn what square dancing is. So we talk about public exhibitions and beginner parties and those types of things. And I've had older dancers who have been frustrated or hurt because of my comments, which were never intended to hurt them. And my comment was, the younger the dancers that we can find to do exhibitions, the far more successful those exhibitions are going to be. It has nothing to do with that if you're 80 years old and you can dance like nobody's business. The problem is that the people that are viewing it want to feel like they can participate, and so the younger the dancers are that you put in front, the more likely it is that they'll go, oh, I can see myself doing that, and then they'll open their minds to it. Okay, long way to get around to my question, and here's my question. By the way, you can think about this age stuff with this. YouTube. I know that a lot of people are putting video on their Facebook pages. I know a lot of people are putting video on their websites, and I wonder what the rules are as far as loading video using YouTube, and I do have a little bit of concern about if we could ever have issues with copyright and license infringement for using copyrighted music. So if you can speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I can tell you right now, I share your concern, and it is the aspects of copyright and the mechanical reproduction of music that scares the bejesus out of me so much I won't even touch it.
Okay, for the tape, I didn't say it. Never mind.
I wish I could. I wish I knew I could do it safely and securely, but I don't know offhand. That's, I think, my next big research project. Perhaps finding music I can use out of Creative Commons with copyleft or something like that as a substitute.
Somebody else had a comment on it? Roy?
As Roy comes up, this is something that comes up at school where I teach. For those of you that don't know, I teach computer network technology at the Renton Technical College in Washington State. I actually, for my accreditation tenure process, I have to take some continuing ed classes. And so next month, I'm taking a fair use class on what I can and cannot post. And so hopefully by then, I'm going to have all kinds of information that I can share with the Home Office about what is fair use, how can I post copyrighted material without infringing on the intellectual property holder's rights. So look for that in the future. If we have Roy maybe saying something about that too, it'd be awesome.
Just something somebody told me about the YouTube and the copyright issues, that basically if the author or publisher sees something and has an issue, YouTube just immediately pulls it. And as far as I know, there were no repercussions. It was just a matter of, take it off. If they don't, then there's repercussions.
Yeah, that's compliance with the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which covers such issues in the U.S. The rest of the planet, best of luck.
Other quick thing, the other thing to think about that is if you put it on YouTube, let YouTube deal with the copyright issue. If you put it on your website, you're dealing with it. But if you put a video up on YouTube and then the YouTube people object or somebody objects about YouTube, then they'll pull it for you. Otherwise, they're coming after you specifically. Protect yourself that way.
Mike Sikorsky, Arizona. As a part-time writer for an online newspaper, the instructions we have from them are if the item you are posting qualifies as a news item, it doesn't matter who you photograph, as long as it's, of course, tasteful, or in print media, whatever. Yes, you can post whatever you want, wherever you want, as a news item. If you go to feature one particular person where you're sort of taking advantage of them and, say, putting it on somebody's picture on a button and selling it, now you've got a problem. But for the most part, what you post on the web, whether it be YouTube or your own website or whatever, if it's a news reporting or news of an upcoming event type of item, whether it has people in it or pets in it or not, there's no copyright issue there because it's news.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Just to follow up, the target marketing session is tomorrow at 2:30 in Capri 101. Thanks, guys.
Danny Payne, Oklahoma City, again. I'm a CPA by profession, and it's hard for me to attend CALLERLAB conventions. So this one's kind of the exception. It's after April 15th, except that April 18th got involved. But anyway, I got done and came. I'm here this year. I had a friend of mine, and I own a site called SquareDancing.com. And years ago, we did a good job with that for several years, and we had grand ambitions for it. And like a lot of things, you guys have stressed, and many of you have stressed here, the importance of updating websites. And ours hasn't been updated in a long time, and it's my fault. My profession has gotten in the way in business, and I still am active and working trying to make a living, you know. So anyway, this is to me one of the real attractions of Facebook and the other media. We have so many people that are already on it. And you don't have updates are not quite as important. I mean, it's important that you communicate as frequently as you can, but the site itself doesn't necessarily get out of date so quickly as a website that you're publishing. And so that's nice. And something that has not been mentioned here today, beyond marketing, is just the issue of communicating with existing groups. And this is something that's really nice about Facebook, that you can set up groups for your club. I mean, your club can have its own Facebook group page, and you can then, as that group administrator, friend the members of your clubs. And when you want to contact the members of your club about dances that are coming up, exhibitions that you're doing, and what's going on, you can simply post something on your club's page.
That's a really good way of also keeping in touch with dancers who have dropped away from dancing because of medical issues, or they've moved out of the area, but they want to keep in touch with their friends. So they're keeping abreast of club developments, and if they ever come back into the area or regain their health and want to come back to dancing, they know what's current. They feel already connected still and up to date still with the club's events and goings on. Yeah, and should I say that word again? Free? We really like that word. Free is good.
You can also take advantage of Facebook's event pages, particularly for like a weekend event that you're doing. Make an event page and put it out there, and you can automatically send that link to all of your Facebook friends and fans, and then they can, again, re-link that, and the word will spread.
Alan Hurst, Sunnyvale, California. Stephen, if you're going to be making a report to the home office after your fair use class, I would respectfully suggest you ask them to consider renegotiating our BMI ASCAP licenses to include music use on YouTube and our videos for clubs.
Barry Clasper from Toronto, Ontario. I just wanted to point out maybe a little different aspect of Facebook than we've been talking about it from a marketing and promotion point of view, basically here. We joined Facebook originally because our kids were on it, and they were posting pictures of our grandchildren and that sort of thing, and we thought, well, that's a way to, our family is kind of scattered around, so we thought that's a way to keep up to date on a little more day-to-day basis. And once we sort of came out on Facebook, all these square dancers started popping up out of the woodwork and friending us. And I'm up to 600 or 700 friends, something like that now, and I'd say 90% of them are square dancers. So contrary to Mike's experience or conjecture, I'm not sure which it was, there's lots of square dancers on Facebook now. I'm wondering if as a demographic, square dancers are more prone to use Facebook than other people our age. I don't know, but there is in fact a huge community of square dancers out there on Facebook. So in addition to the marketing and promotion and getting into new places kind of notion, look at Facebook as a way to keep contact with all the people that you meet through square dancing. One of the things about square dancing is we go to all these conventions all over the place and we meet people that we only see once a year or once every couple of years. And if you see them on Facebook, you get a chance to kind of keep up with their lives, but in that distant way where, you don't really have to invest a lot of effort in it, but you find out, their daughter had a baby, or, they've got a new dog, or, you find out little facts like that that kind of keep you in touch with them. And as Brian just pointed out, if people stop dancing for some reason and go on to other pursuits, you still keep contact with them. So not only does it help you reach out to people that are maybe not part of your community yet, it also helps you keep in contact with the people that are part of your community now.
The interesting thing about Facebook is the demographics are really widening on that. It started out as for college students, and as it has gotten out into the wide world, the demographics have been expanding, especially on the older side, so that I think they're saying that baby boomers are a large percentage of the Facebook demographic right now.
Bob Riggs, Colorado. Wanted to bring up the point of branding. We've talked a little bit about it. I have owned the name Square Dance, etc., and used it as a domain name for almost 10 years now. It brings people to me for parties. It brings people to me in a lot of different ways, and I'm linked to a lot of different places. This is sort of the different way you identify yourself. We were concerned about security, personal security in relation. My business address for Square Dance, etc., is the address I post. Now, whose address is that? And the phone number is one that they can get a hold of me at. It's right here. And so the point being now, so that's sort of a branding of identity. Now, I also own bobriggs.biz, and that will get to the same kind of promotion and same kind of place. And I'm on Facebook, but not in the way I need to be, and so I'm headed there. But I think that the point being is you need to create a brand. Who is your identity? If you have most callers have a personal identity, but don't have a promotion identity. And I think that's something we should all think about is what are we promoting? We're promoting, whether it's what Mike Seastrom said this morning, team dancing or whatever it is, we need to be promoting it. And that's created through identity.
Who are you? Who do you want to be? What is the impression you want people to come away with? What is your specialty as a Square Dance caller? Is it intricate challenge choreography? Is it intro parties? Is it teaching classes? What is your strength? How do you reach people then that are interested in that particular aspect? You can craft your persona. If you have multiple talents, craft your persona for each one of those talents to attract that different market segment.
All right, I'm going to take 5 minutes before we go to lunch because we have 5 minutes left. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank Kris Jensen and Brian Jarvis both for participating on our panel. A couple things I'd like you to go home with from my perspective. One is don't forget about traditional methods of communicating with your dancers. Newsletters, again, name, date, time, place. Don't forget the year. Don't forget the state. I have an issue. If it's something in print like that, use good grammar. If you send a Twitter message, a tweet, as they call them, I don't expect it to be subject-verb agreement, and I'm okay with that. You write me an email and you use a lowercase I and no punctuation, I will delete it. If you are afraid of technology, there is no reason to. I've been doing technology since before I can remember. I was that 13-year-old boy. I was that 12-year-old boy that helped all of my friends. Of course, I started when VCRs were blinking 12, and that's what I did. And then I moved up to personal computers, a TRS-80 Model 3, and an Apple II were the machines I cut my teeth on. I know that Fortran stands for Formula Translation or Formula Translator. Start small. Find something. Email, find Facebook, find Twitter, find something small that you can hold on to. Get good at it, then add something else. If you're a Square Dance caller, you didn't walk in starting, there's like 2 people I know that started calling C4 to begin with, but they're the anomalies. If you promote yourself, use a current promotional photo. I have a photo of me at age 25. I have a thick head of hair. I'm 20 pounds lighter. I would love to use that photo, but that's not who I am. Use a current one. Don't be frightened of who you are. Promote yourself and celebrate your skin the way it is today, or your hair color, or your glasses, or whatever it is. Don't ever be afraid to ask your friends for help. You are not stupid. You are smart, smart people. Those dummy books always make me uncomfortable because they imply that you're not bright. You are. Their understanding, though, is that you need to be educated. You are simply ignorant of the topic. Soon you'll be the expert. Ask a friend for help. Don't be frightened. You might hear the term meme show up every now and then. Oh, it's an internet meme. M-E-M-E is an idea that has spread, it's become a life of its own, to kind of put it succinctly. The idea is it kind of grows as an idea that breeds and grows more ideas. And you might find that some little thing that you say or do carries forth and spreads, and that's what we want. That's what you should want. Finally, you're trying to create an awareness for yourself, not just for your current dancers, but for your dancers that you want to have or that need to know who you are. They just don't know it. So when you add keywords to your website, whether they be meta tags or actual words or whatever, know that somebody's not going to search for, I want a square dance. They're going to search for things like have a good time, party, dancing, music, energy. They're not going to ask you the question because they don't know the question. Give them the answer that they're looking for with them not knowing the question. That's what technology can do for you. Finally, one of the things I'd like to say, and we talked about it briefly, is that permission marketing is one of my favorite things. There's a man by the name of Seth Godin. If you've never been to his website, search for him. I read it almost every day. I subscribe to his emails. He's a marketing guy, and I would follow him around like an apostle if I could get away with it, because he says the most common sense things, and they seem so smart to me, because sometimes people want permission to do something. They don't want to be blasted with your random spam of, oh, come to my dances. But if they ask you for information, they have given you permission for you to send them something. So if tomorrow somebody sends you an email or sends you a tweet or a Facebook message, I'm interested in a square dance party, you now have permission to talk to them, because they're going to listen to you. They're going to be receptive to you. They're going to be receptive to this dance, whether you call it a square dance, a team dance, a fun dance, a party dance, a community dance. It doesn't matter. They want you. They just don't know it. Thank you very much for coming, and we will see you on the dance floor.